The bright lights of the television studio shimmered against the polished floor as the audience hummed with a collective energy of anticipation. In this temple of entertainment, secrets were the currency and laughter was the reward. One of the biggest secrets held by the radiant brides on stage was a classic deception regarding the passing of time, for one of them loved to lie about her age. The mystery was palpable, a lingering question that hung in the air like perfume. Her husband was about to find out the truth, and the audience was invited to witness the revelation because it was finally time to play the Newlywed game. Gary Kroeger stepped into the spotlight with a practiced ease, his smile reflecting the vibrant glow of the stage lamps. He welcomed the viewers to the show, his voice carrying the warmth of a seasoned host who understood that the heart of the program lay in the genuine, often unpredictable connections between people. He explained that the audience was about to meet three newlywed couples to discover how well they truly knew each other. The rules were as simple as they were revealing. Gary would ask each couple questions about one another, and correct answers would earn points. The stakes were high, as the couple with the most points at the end of the journey would win an incredible second honeymoon. The introduction of the contestants began with a sense of celebration. The first couple occupied their seats with a mixture of nerves and excitement. She was a 31-year-old music production assistant with an eye for detail, while he was a 28-year-old editor used to shaping stories. They had been married for 3 months, a short but intense period of domestic discovery. Gary introduced them as Heather and John Ganziano, wishing them the best of luck as the crowd cheered. Next, the spotlight shifted to a younger pair. She was a 25-year-old accountant who likely appreciated the precision of the game, and he was a 26-year-old claims representative accustomed to evaluating facts. They had been married for 4 months. Their names were Cheyenne and James Causey, and they stepped into the arena of the show with bright smiles and hopeful hearts. Finally, the third couple brought a different kind of experience to the stage. She was a 36-year-old piano teacher, a woman who understood rhythm and harmony, while he was a 31-year-old construction worker, a man who built things to last. They had been married for 7 months, the longest duration among the participants. Gary welcomed Tina and Martine Tavishan, noting Martine's nice tie and inviting a round of applause for all the couples as the game officially commenced. Gary turned his attention toward the couples, noting the maniacal laughter already bubbling out of Heather. He could sense that the day was destined for fun. The first round began with Tina. Gary asked her to look at Martine, who appeared on the television screen. The prompt was a window into his personality, the movie he could watch over and over again. Before the answer was revealed, Gary stopped the tape and asked Tina to finish Martine's sentence for 10 points. Tina, with confidence in her voice, guessed Forrest Gump. However, when the footage continued, Martine revealed his true preference was Beauty and the Beast. The discrepancy was immediate and hilarious. Martine admitted he did not understand the choice himself, and Tina could only agree in confused silence. The game moved to Cheyenne and James. The prompt for James involved a task his wife still struggled with despite numerous demonstrations. James lamented that even after showing her a dozen times, his wife still did not know how to set the videocassette recorder. Cheyenne defended herself by asking what the problem was, but James pointed out that the clock was still flashing 12 whenever he was not home. It was a classic domestic struggle, a small mechanical mystery that remained unsolved in their household. When it was Heather's turn, the question turned toward the intimate and the absurd. John was asked about the strangest interruption they had ever experienced while making love. Heather guessed that it was his mother calling, a common enough fear in early marriage. However, John's answer was more feline in nature. He revealed that the cats were watching them, adding with a wink that they knew a good thing when they saw it. The dynamics shifted as Gary flipped the questions around. John was asked about Heather's first impression of him. Heather's recorded answer was a playful critique of his physical appearance. She admitted that when she first met her husband, she thought he had a big attitude, but then corrected herself to say it was actually his hairdo. She described it as a big old Fabio thing that was god-awful, a living large hairstyle that resembled a Manair or the famous look of Farrah Fawcett. John defended the style, claiming it was fashionable 2 years ago, but the battle of aesthetics was clearly won by Heather's modern sensibilities. James was then asked about Cheyenne's perception of his past. The prompt suggested that judging by his previous girlfriends, James had a thing for a certain type of woman. James guessed that the answer was women with braids. Cheyenne's recorded response was more direct, stating he had a thing for women with large breasts. James took the answer in stride, admitting that was true as well. Martine was the last to face the reversal. He was asked to identify the imitation he performed that Tina considered the world's worst. Tina guessed it was his impression of Al Capone. Martine, however, believed his worst imitation was of Tina herself. He even offered a demonstration, shouting the word honey in a high pitch to mimic her. Tina stood her ground, insisting his Al Capone was truly the bottom of the barrel. After a short break, the conversation turned more personal as Gary delved into the stories of how these couples came to be. Martine shared the elaborate and ultimately doomed plan he had for his proposal. He had spent 6 months preparing to hide an engagement ring in Tina's morning coffee, accompanied by flowers and chocolates. However, the plan went awry when Tina decided she wanted to drink coffee the night before. Fearing she might swallow the ring or ruin the surprise, Martine had to cancel the entire arrangement. In the end, he simply gave her the ring, feeling sorry for the failed logistics but happy that she said yes. Cheyenne and James then recounted the story of their first date, which was less of a date and more of a missed connection. They had met at college, and James had asked her to a show on campus that same night. James described a harrowing journey through 1.5 miles of snow, sleet, hail, and even wild dogs, only to find that Cheyenne never showed up. Cheyenne corrected the record, pointing out that it was not raining or snowing, and that she had tried to send a message through mutual friends. It took a second introduction by a friend named Brolio and a dinner where Cheyenne paid for the meal to finally set their relationship on the right track. John and Heather had their own unique beginning. John had seen Heather at a party and asked a mutual friend for her number. Heather, who was not interested in the dating scene at the time and simply wanted to focus on her work, told the friend that John should not call until she said so. John, undeterred, called anyway. Their first phone conversation was so one-sided that John joked he had more interaction with his couch than with her. Eventually, Heather came to her senses, and the persistence paid off. As the second round began, the score stood with Cheyenne and James in the lead with 10 points, while the other two couples had yet to score. This round used multiple-choice questions worth 10 points each. Gary asked Heather about John's opinion on her parallel parking skills. Heather guessed that John would say she only gets the car to the curb after bumping other cars out of the way. John confirmed this, joking that she stayed about 4 feet away from the sidewalk. Cheyenne was asked about the reason James gives her flowers. She guessed it was because he felt romantic. James agreed, reinforcing the positive spirit of their relationship. Tina was then asked in which department Martine felt he did not get enough credit. She guessed it was his looks, but Martine had chosen sexual prowess, leading to a moment of playful embarrassment. The questions continued with Martine guessing how Tina viewed their shopping trips. He thought she would say he whines and complains, but Tina actually said he wanders off into the automotive section of the mall. James then tried to guess Cheyenne's favorite kind of humor. He chose physical humor, but Cheyenne revealed it was actually anything involving toilet humor, specifically using the term poo-poo. Finally, John correctly guessed that Heather would say she has to beg him for a massage, earning them 10 points through a bit of good-natured groveling. The third round introduced a new mechanic called That Is My Wife. The husbands were given signs and had to identify if a secret revealed by their wives belonged to them. Martine earned 10 points by correctly identifying that Tina could not sleep when he was away. John then correctly claimed the secret that Heather had been throwing away his clothes and sneaking in new items without him noticing, though John admitted he actually knew all along. The secrets became more personal. John correctly identified that Cheyenne's mother did not like him at first because she feared he would take her daughter away. Then came a humorous revelation about a husband who wore his wife's bra and underwear in front of her friends. John proudly held up his sign, and Heather explained that he had jumped out during a coffee gathering wearing thong underwear and a bra while acting like a female bodybuilder. John joked that there was nothing like a man of his size doing a dance in a thong. The game then touched upon the central mystery mentioned at the start of the show. The secret was that one of the brides loved to lie about her age. James held up his sign, revealing that Cheyenne was the one who practiced this womanly prerogative, sometimes claiming she was only 21. Other secrets included a wife who would rather watch television than have sex, which Martine correctly identified as Tina's habit. The most outrageous secret was about a couple who made love in the bathroom of a gas station. Martine held up his sign, but then clarified that it was not actually him, leading to a confusing but funny exchange where Tina claimed she was not there either. The final round was a rapid-fire preference test with escalating point values. The husbands held up signs behind their wives, who then had to match the choice. For 10 points, the choice was between strawberries and bananas. Heather and John matched on strawberries, while Tina and Martine matched on bananas. Cheyenne and James missed the match. For 20 points, the category was retail or discount. All three couples correctly matched on discount, showing a collective appreciation for a good deal. For 30 points, the question was whether the wife was always on time or always late. Tina and Heather matched with their husbands, but Cheyenne and James missed again. The 40-point question asked if the wife was the first with the news or the last to know. Heather and Cheyenne matched as being the first with the news, while Tina missed. For 50 points, the prompt was whether she loved his smile or preferred his butt. All three couples matched on the preference for the husband's rear end. For 60 points, the choice was between purring like a kitten or howling like an alley cat. Tina and Cheyenne matched on purring, but Martine had chosen howling for Tina. Heather also matched on purring. The final question was worth 100 points and would determine the winner of the trip to the Caribbean. The prompt was better on bottom or terrific on top. Tina guessed better on bottom and matched with Martine, bringing their total to 240 points. Cheyenne also guessed better on bottom and matched with James, giving them 310 points and the temporary lead. Finally, Heather guessed terrific on top. John turned his sign to reveal the same answer. With a final score of 350 points, Heather and John Ganziano were declared the winners. The studio erupted in cheers as the young couple celebrated their victory. They were headed for a week at a colonial yet contemporary resort and casino in the Caribbean, a well-deserved second honeymoon. Gary Kroeger thanked all the couples for their participation and their willingness to share their lives with the world. He bid the audience farewell, promising more fun and more revelations the next time they gathered to play the Newlywed game. The credits began to roll as the couples laughed and embraced, their bonds strengthened by a day of honesty, humor, and the simple joy of being together.